Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more basics. We're going to talk more about what we do after the shift, after things happen. If you happen to be alive, you're one of the lucky ones that make it through the 90-degree shift, like I am, hoping that I am. What do we want to do on the other side of that? We want to get our basic security set up. Hopefully, you have your crew already determined. Y'all have been working together and you know what you're doing. Hopefully, wherever you are is not affected a whole lot, and your preparations that you can make now benefit you going forward. But there's a good chance that you might have to move at least a short distance away. You're going to need to consolidate with your crew, and then you're going to need to start looking at some items. You're going to need to start looking at uh, how you're set up for your layout of where your crops are going to be, where your animals are going to be, because you are going to need to find some animals. If you don't already have them, you're going to need to acquire them. That's going to be very important for you and your whole crew. You're going to need to focus on getting some short to growth crops in the ground. You're not going to be able to go to the grocery store and get groceries. You're going to need to be able to eat something that is available to you quickly. Then you're going to look at your long growth crops right after that. You want to go into your long growth crops so that later down the road you will have food coming in as well. So we're going to look at these. The general guide to layout is you're going to want to assess your terrain and water features. Where you are is going to be different from where I am. It's going to be different from where your neighbor may wind up. Your neighbor may be part of your crew, but they may not. They may not be somebody you want hanging around. Some people don't like to work. Some people don't like to pull their own weight. You don't want those type of people around. Assess your options. Once you figure out, okay, this is where I'm at, you're going to want to look at where the water falls. If you have running water available to you, you can have running water in your house. If you have running water to you, it is going to available to you. It is going to save you a lot of effort over the years. And so if you can locate yourself somewhere where there is a readily available source of running water, that's going to do you a lot of good. You would like to have wide open spaces so that you can have grain crops and that you can have other crops for that, but that may not be available to you. You're going to have to customize this to you. I cannot speak to everyone. Nothing I'm going to say here should ever be taken as hard, do this or else. This is my suggestions of things that I think might be handy on the other side. You're going to want to consider your dwelling. How visible do you want it to be? How insulated do you need it to be? How does the layout affect you if you're going to have more than one person or more than one couple inside of this building? Consider these things going into it so that when you start to build your shelter, you build your shelter with those things in mind. So you want to start your short-term crops ASAP, as soon as you possibly can. You want to be breaking ground and dropping seeds as soon as you possibly can. You want to have fresh food coming in as soon as possible. And also consider defense. That is not just against the wilderness. People will be alive, not many of them. A lot of people will die in the chaos immediately following. But we're going to presume at this point that we are after whatever the event is. If it is what I'm looking for with the hot end event, we no longer are having the plasma discharges. We're no longer having the atmosphere being able to see through it. We'll have a day-night cycle again. We'll have a blue sky in the day. And so you're going to want to consider your defense. You're going to want to consider the people who make it through, because not everybody is your friend. Not everybody who makes it through will be somebody you want to help the genetics carry on for. And that is a hard reality, but that is a reality. There are people that you do not want hanging around. There are people who will bring down your entire settlement if they have the wrong attitude. So you need to be selective about the people that you allow to be part of your collective there. with that being said, okay, we're going to look at if we have ideal conditions now. This is if everything is hunky-dory, perfect. There's not massive destruction of things everywhere, and you were able to get to a relatively ideal location close to you with the people that you want. We want to look at flowing water here. I laid this out. This is north to the top, south to the bottom, of course. But we're going to assume that this high point of the water here on the right-hand side is flowing down into a gathering of water and then down hill. We're going to assume that this top left-hand corner is kind of a high ground situation, and then it kind of wraps along this backside. This is just to give a general idea of what you want to do. You want to orient your tall growth towards the back. What I have here is these dark green dots are going to be nut trees. You're going to want to try your best to have some kind of a nut source. There are nuts that grow all over the place, right? Depending on your location and your locale, you should be able to source nuts somehow. This is not going to be an immediate thing, but while you're out gathering, if you come across a pecan tree, get some pecans. Stuff them in the ground when you get back. You're going to want to do that on the northern end of your wherever your property is. Wherever you want to create a windbreak, wherever you want to create a shade break. But don't go monoculture with this. You're not going to want to just grow a whole row all the way back here of pecan trees. Maybe a pecan tree followed by a walnut tree, or a pecan tree followed by an oak tree even, because you can't eat acorns. You can make a flour with them and supplement your grains. They're high in antioxidants, so they're good for you. But you're going to want to alternate these trees. You're going to want to get biodiversity built up as soon as possible. Trees are not a high priority right off the bat, but it is something to keep in mind whenever you're looking at the place, wherever you wind up. Now, I'm going to assume that it's just you and your crew. And say your crew is 30 or 40 people, right? And that's good people that will all want to work. Well, this is your particular section of this spot, right? You have another crew member on this side of the water, and you have another crew member down off on this end and down on this end. And y'all all work together to figure out which trees to grow and all of that. And you cover defense. And if this is your plot, you're going to want to plant your nut trees towards the back because they grow really tall. They'll shade out anything that's behind them from the sun. The sun will be in the southern part of the hemisphere. Probably. Now, what if we're in the flip and you wind up in the southern hemisphere? Then you're going to flip this map around. You're going to put them trees to the south, to the south, because the sun will be mostly in the north, and you want as much sun as possible to fall where your plants are going to be. In front of that, coming down here, these red dots, these are going to be fruit trees. You're going to want to try to get pears and apples, persimmons, citrus fruits, whatever you can get. And again, you're not building monoculture. You want to spread them out. That it decreases your pests, right? It decreases your biological hazards such as molds and slimes and things that will attack it in that way. But it decreases your bug chances as well. Like if bugs come along and they find one tree, that's one thing. If they come along and they find an orchard, they're there to stay. So you want to spread them out a good bit. And then you're going to want to put in between these little bitty dots. These little bitty dots are shrubs. You're going to want to plant some rosemary, some garlic, some rosemary, some thyme, some sage, maybe some lavender, various edible medicinal shrubberies, right? Now, hopefully you can start this now. You can do this at your place right now, and you can start picking up these shrubs and these trees. Or, if not then, you can do this in the future, slightly to the future. And you can start picking up these things and planting them now so that you can use them later. Because, bear in mind, It's going to take a long time for trees to bear. Fruit trees, some of them start to bear around 3 years. Uh, they fully mature and get about 5 to 8 years. You'll start getting a full harvest off of them. Nut trees, you're looking at about 8 to 10 years until they start to fruit. And you're not getting a full harvest for 15 to 20 years. Now, they'll fruit for a long time, and you'll get plenty of fruit from that point forward. But this is planning generationally ahead, so if you can do this now, when this happens, like this could happen tomorrow. It could be too late to prepare at all. But this could happen in 30 years, and you could have been well prepared to live completely sustainably on your own, which is, by the way, the goal, right? So you want to interplant. You want to make sure that you got some flowers growing, like pretty flowers, just pollinator flowers, because these little white boxes, you're going to want at least one person in your crew that likes bees, because you're going to want to cultivate bees. You're going to want to have bees as close as feasibly possible to each other. And you're going to want them to be pollinating everything. Because you can harvest honey. Honey is a wonderful source for sugars. And it's a preservative. It doesn't go bad on its own. Honey by itself, you can stick it in a jar, put it up, and it's good if you pull it out 100 years later. So it is a good, stable sugar source. That is something that you want. I promise you that. Your fruits and your vegetables will be getting you some of that. But having that outside source of fruit, of sugar is going to be wonderful. And so you want to have at least one person on your crew that understands this. That's going to bring us into this next part. And the next part is your actual plant cover rotation. Now, not your highest priority, but one of your priorities is going to be securing livestock. What you ideally want to have is chickens, for sure, because chickens provide a meat source and they provide eggs as a different protein source in readily available, abundant numbers. And they grow relatively quickly. They make noise if they're disturbed, so they can tell you if something's around. They're fairly stable. They pick off bugs. They do wonderful things for you, and they add back into your compost in a wonderful manner. So you're going to want to have chickens. You're also going to want to have a milk source, because making cheese is great. So you're going to want either goats or cows. Now, if you can set yourself up now where you have cows or goats and you can make milk for yourself, start learning to make cheese. Cheese will be a readily tradable source on the other side. So you're going to want to get milk creatures. You're going to want to have meat creatures. So you're going to want pigs. You're going to want goats are good for that too. Cows are good for that too. You're going to want, like, this is a really major one, but you're going to want work animals such as horses and things like that. So you're going to need to plan into the care for all of these animals. Some of them will work together in maintaining your properties for you, right? When you plant, you're going to want to plant in successions. You're going to want to, we're going to say start right here, plant one, right? I say plant one, but this is not one plant. This is where you're going to want to plant your trio. Your trio is going to, I've got a slide for that. Let's pull it up real quick. Your trio is right here. It is corn, vine beans, and squash. It won't let me pull that down anymore. I'll fix that in a minute. Let me go ahead and do it now. All right. That's going to be corn, vine beans, and squash. Corn has shallow roots, and it has a tendency to get washed out or sun-scorched. Vine beans need support to grow, and squash take up a lot of space. But if you plant these together, as the natives did here in the States, they work together wonderfully. Corn provides a nice, stable stalk, grows rapidly. The stalk grows up, and it gets very, very solid as it gets high. Well, as it's growing higher, the vine for the vine beans can grow around that stalk, and they can have the support that they need to provide a good harvest on the backside. And then squash protects the roots from the sun scald. It also helps protect from erosion because it's restricting the water flow to certain areas. You don't get a whole lot of full rainfall underneath the squash leaf. Now, squash can be literally like butternut squash, but it can be the different types of zucchinis and things of that nature too. Big broadleaf plants. And one of these, I believe that the beans provide nitrogen, because corn is a high nitrogen, and I think the beans are a low nitrogen, and they kind of balance each other out with the nutrients that they take in. But you're going to want to plant these together in one whole section of this, right? So one whole, say plant one here, we'll call it 1 acre, right? An acre is 200 feet by 200 feet, roughly. It makes a square of 200 feet by 200 feet. It's actually 208 and 208, but 200 and 200 is close enough. You're going to want to plant that whole thing, and you're going to get enough to feed yourself and your family and replant from that acre. Then your next, your plant 2 is going to be, say, potatoes, tomatoes, something that grows under the ground, something that grows above the ground, and possibly a cover crop. That's going to really be up to you. There are several different things that are up. This one may not even do the whole section in one. It may be one section in this, one section in that. But you're going to want to have that using slightly separate nutrients than you did for plant 1. And then next year, this plant 1 will move over to cover over here. And then plant 2 will move over to where plant 1 is. And cover will move over to where plant 2 is. And then your animals will rotate through that too. In an ideal situation. Where I have cover, that does not necessarily mean just let the grass go wild. Right? What I would do, and what I plan to do, is to grow a wheat. I'm going to try and grow a wheat because the grain here is very important. A 60-pound, 1 bushel is 60 pounds. If you plant a 60-pound bushel across 1 acre, you will yield approximately 40 bushels. It takes 4 bushels per person per year in flour. That's eating 1 loaf a day, or half a loaf a day per person. So you're going to cover on the one section of this, one section that's cover, which we'll get into that in just a second, but is also going to be your grain, and you're going to get all you need to cover you and your 4, presumably you have 4 people, so that's 16 bushels. That leaves you with 24 bushels left, right? I think I did my math right, but who knows? To do something else with, well, you need to put 1 bushel up for next year, so that's done. That leaves you 23 bushels to store and put away for later times, or to share with your crew, or to trade with other settlements, or to turn into an alcohol, or to make into a long storage bread. There's many options readily available for a wheat berry. So I'm going to try to pick up a bushel of wheat. It's 60 pounds. It's heavy, but it's not all that big. And store it. Just hold on to and carry with me whenever things happen. You're going to want to make sure that you're rotating to maintain your soil nutrition levels. We're going to go into more depth in a different video into soil structure and how to make sure that your soil is perfectly viable for whatever you want to grow at all times. It's a bio-rich soil that will just nourish anything that you try to grow into it. But where I was talking about with the cover for the the weed, well, when you take the berry off the weed, the stalk is not good for feeding to livestock. It's not, but it makes a very good mulch. So you're going to take that and you're going to move it, right? You're going to cut that low, and then you'll move that over to probably plant one area and cover your mulch in between your rows and block out any weeds. And then whenever you move over plant section 2 into plant section 1, you just plant those rows, like you divide the straw and you plant in between those rows so that the next row is in between those rows and it's already mulched. It's really a fairly efficient system. Okay, so let's get into the next slide itself. You're going to want to focus first on short growth crops, right? Short growth crops are going to be something that you can eat quick because you're going to get hungry. You're going to want to pack prior to this, like at a minimum, I would pack enough for you and your immediate family to have bare minimum nutrition for 3 months. You're going to want enough beans and rice or something of that nature to feed yourself for 3 months, because there is a possibility that you pop out coming into winter and you can't plant anything. Even if you're just starting to come into fall, there's things you can put in the ground and get a harvest off of even through the winter. But if you're starting right when the winter starts, you're not going to be able to get anything to start. As soon as you get into spring, you can start planting your short-term and your long-growth crops. But if you're going into winter, it's going to be a hard 3 months. Make sure you have the food preparation for at least 3 months. 4 would be better, but 3 is pretty much a minimum. But let's assume that you're going in and it's beginning of spring, optimal, right? That's what we want. We want optimal. You're going to want to get in some leafy greens straight off the top, because within 1 to 3 weeks, you're picking plants. You're going to want to plant them heavy because you're going to need the food source coming in fairly quickly. So you're going to plant them heavy and thin them heavy so that you're eating the babies. The babies are full of nutrients. They're good for you, even as good as the big ones. And so you can eat those as you thin them out. That is a food source readily available right from the beginning. The same with your root crop for greens. Radishes, turnips, mustards. There's several big leafy greens that really come from their root crop, but we eat the greens too. Make sure you get a variety that is both root and green, and a heritage version preferably. But you're going to want to plant them heavy too, and then thin them to where they're appropriate sized. But you can eat those greens as they come along. Radishes are only 25 days to harvest. Yeah, you'll get tired of eating radishes, but at 25 days to harvest, you'll be eating radishes within a month. That is amazing. That is packed full of vitamins. You're going to be tired of beans by that point. Carrots take about 50 days. That is on the longer side of the shorts, right? But I wanted to throw that in there anyway. And the zucchini starts being ripe at 35 days. Zucchini is an excellent gourd to grow. They store long. I've had just sitting on my counter, perfectly fresh, for 4 or 5 months. Just because I didn't have a use for it yet. And then I did a stir fry and I used it. And it was perfectly fine. And that was 4 or 5 months just room temperature. So they store well. And with better storage, you can get longer, right? So, and they grow relatively quickly. They make a great cover crop. They do great for shading ground and preventing grass from growing. But they do take up a lot of space. Bear that in mind. And then garlic and onion. You're going to want to get that in the ground as soon as you can. You can judiciously harvest the leaves from garlic and onion to use as a seasoning while you're going, because eating beans and rice with no seasoning is going to be bland. We will talk on another video about actually preparing what you should pack to be able to eat, but make sure you got a lot of salt. And then we're going to look real quick at long growth crops. You're going to want potatoes in there. Potatoes use phosphorus, right? So they're going to be one of your off-season crops. You're going to want to use potatoes in your second rotation, before your grain, but after your heavy nitrogen users. We talked about the trio, the corns, the vine beans, and the squash. There are other trios available, but that is the most readily known one. And they provide structure, shade, and supplements. Like, they supplement each other, they structure each other, and they give shade. Melons, watermelons, cantaloupes, things of that nature, they make alcohol. Alcohol is a number one priority. Not so you can get drunk, although that is nice sometimes. What you want the alcohol for is for sterilization problems and for making vinegar. You're going to need a lot of vinegar. And while melon vinegar may not be the absolute best, it is quickly available. And melons make a lot of alcohol per volume. As opposed to trying to grow a grape. It takes a lot of grapes to make a gallon of wine. It takes like one watermelon. So there's something to pay attention to, because alcohol is very useful. You can use that for dressing wounds. You can use that for celebrations. You can use that for emergency fire starting. You can use it for a variety of things. Besides turning it into vinegar, which is going to be a high priority. You want as much vinegar as possible. You really do. And then tomatoes. Tomatoes make really good preservation foods. They are good, high, dense in nutrient, high acid foods. So when you go to can them to store them for later, which we will talk about making sure you are prepared for in another video, they're high in acid, so they don't take as much to keep as some other things do. And so they're really good for a midwinter, pop it out of the cabinet and pop the lid off and eat you some fresh tomatoes, or fresh-ish tomatoes that are high in the minerals and vitamins that you're not getting in the middle of the winter. And then peppers. A lot of people don't know that peppers can often, in the right climates, be grown as trees. They can perpetuate. My ideal scenario for the shift is that I turn into a more tropical climate, so I'm hoping that I can grow peppers year round as a tree. But even still, like a little bit higher than me in the zones, you can overwinter peppers. And overwintering peppers gives you more peppers. Well, dried peppers make a great addition to anything that you're preserving, for one, because they will help repel any pests. The cumin, whatever it is, the hot stuff in peppers, keeps the bugs out. It's good in your diet because it stimulates your intestines and it keeps you flowing regularly. And it's great for trade. This is another one that not everybody will be prepared for, but pepper seeds, like one pepper seed grows a lot of peppers. And so if you can have 5 or 6 pepper plants, you're going to want to put them around your house. Kind of keep them in a microclimate. We will get a lot into the actual growing of the plants as we go along, but this is just a general overview of what we want to look at when we're setting things up. When we're trying to figure out, okay, the world just went fucking nuts. Everything everywhere is different. There's no more electricity. There's no running water. What do I need to do right now to get set up? Figure out your water source. Priority 1. Without water, you die. Priority 2 is to figure out your shelter. You need to situate yourself in an easily defensible location somewhere that you can watch for other people, because that is going to be your major concern. Uh, Most places that you would be concerned about the wildlife are already going to be concerned with the wildlife. They know what they're doing. You are from the city. You are from the suburbs. And you're not expecting to have to kill people. And hopefully it never comes to that. But there are going to be people out there looking to do that to you. So you need to be prepared to defend yourself in whatever manner that you need to. And so make sure that you have a readily defensible structure. You have water available. You have readily defensible structure. And then you're going to want to let it get into your crops. You're going to want to get something into the ground that you can eat as quick as possible. You should have stores that you can use to get you to fresh food. I don't know what your hunting situation will be. You will know that better than me. But if you can forage for wild game or livestock, now's the time to do it. Get ahead of the game. Try to corral as much as you can, because livestock is going to be a valuable asset on the other side. Wheat is going to be a valuable asset. Alcohol, spices, and any, like, my intercropping. Like, let's look at it real quick. I'll show you what I'm talking about. My intercropping plan, all of these little dots right here are rosemary, sage, thyme, lavender, motherwort, mugwort, all of the things, echinacea, that you need to be able to heal yourself. That is what I have growing right there. Hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a not too difficult topic. This one ain't too rough today. We will be getting more into plant specifics. We're going to talk more about making soil that plants want to grow in, so that you can grow the best plants possible. And that's all coming up. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. It's been Pit Steak. Peace.